Hi. So this is a continuation of the previous part where we created the style.css file and the index.html of our pine tree app. Okay, so this is what we have so far in our app. And in this part, we're going to look at the algorithm of how we are going to design this particular application, and also the JavaScript code, obviously. So let's first look at the algorithm of the app as such, or the concept behind this. So algorithm.text. Okay, so let me first draw a pine tree and show you. So let's say the height is actually 5. Okay, so I want a pine tree that has a height of 5, that is 5 rows, and then a stump at the end. So what happens is 1, and then we have 3 here. Okay, and then 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then finally the stump right here. So this is what we get. Okay, so this is what we're supposed to get. So if you can see here, there are different steps. If we take each of the row as one step, then the step 1, which is the first row, has 4 spaces and 1 star. If you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4 spaces and then 1 star. And step 2 is going to have 3 spaces and then 3 stars. Okay, right here, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 stars. And then step 3 is going to have 2 spaces and 5 stars. And step 4 is going to have 1 space and 7 stars. And step 5 is going to have 0 spaces and 9 stars. Let me show you. So this is the step 3. 1, 2, and then we had 5 stars, 1, and then we have 7 stars, and here there's no space, and we have 9 stars. And then finally we have a stump, which also has, if you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, which also has 4 stars, just like the first, which also has 4 spaces, just like the first row. So that's how we draw our pine tree. Okay, so finally 4 spaces and then the stump. Okay, so if you notice, the spaces start at height minus 1, and in this case height is equal to 5. Am I right? So the spaces is actually equal to 5 minus 1, which is 4. So that's what it starts at. But the stars actually start at 1. It starts at 1 right here. Also, the spaces decrement by 1 in each row, and the stars increment, that is increase, by 2 in each row. So this is what we found from this particular diagram. So it's the spaces start from height minus 1, and then it decreases by 1 every time. See, 4, that's height minus 1 is 4, and then 3, 2, 1, 0. And the stars start from 1, and then they increment by 2 in each row. So it starts from 1, 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, then 7, then 9. Okay, and then finally our stump is also going to have height minus 1 spaces and then the stump. So this is the algorithm of this particular app. Okay, so we are going to convert this algorithm into JavaScript code. So let's get to that now. So first of all, before we do anything, we have to first retrieve the elements we need for our application. So we need the pine element because we're going to draw on that element, and then we need the submit button because we're going to create a condition where when we click on the submit button, the pine tree has to be drawn. And then we also need the reset button and the input button. Okay, so we need all of these buttons so we can get each of these. So first of all, we're going to get the pine, submit, and reset. So var pine, I'm going to keep the names the same just so I don't get confused. Document.getElementById. The ID is pine. And then var submit, this is the submit button. The submit button, this is the pine, then the submit button, which has the ID submit. So document.getElementById, getElementById submit, and then finally the reset button. Okay, so we are not going to use the reset button as just yet, but I just want to get it so I can use it later on. So document.getElementById reset. Okay, that was the ID of the reset button. So now I'm going to create, at the bottom, I'm going to create an event listener for the submit button first. So submit.add event listener. So what this does is it creates an event called click. So whenever you click on, you or the user clicks on the submit button, we're going to call a function. Call the drawPine function. Okay, so whenever the user clicks on the submit button, the drawPine function is called. So that's how add event listeners are created. So event listeners are created. So now let me define the function. The function drawPine, it's not going to have any arguments. So first of all, inside the function, I'm going to change the inner HTML value of the pine element. To start off, I'm going to give it an inner HTML of an empty string. Okay, so just to start off, because we'll be adding to the string to this particular element later on, appending HTML code to this element later on. So let's, okay, next we're going to get the input element. Okay, so this particular input element, because we are going to manipulate and we are going to get the height value from this input element, because right, so once the submit button is clicked, we have to get the height value of the input element and then use it to draw our pine tree. So input el, I'm going to call it that, is going to have the element with the ID height. Okay, now this just has the input element in it, but I want to get the value of the input element. Am I right? Okay, so to do that, we'll have to get the value of the element. So I can save the value in the variable height and then say input el dot value. But there's a problem here. The problem is, so this particular value is actually a string. It's not a number. So we can't actually do any calculations with it like we want to. So we have to convert this string into an integer, and we can do that by the parseInt function. That's a built-in JavaScript function, and if I include a parseInt and then this particular string and a 10, that means I'm converting this particular number into a decimal number. Okay, this particular string into a decimal number. So that's it. And we've gotten our height in here. So first of all, I'm going to create a variable called stump that's going to hold the number of spaces that we need for our stump. Okay, so this is going to hold the spaces we need for our stump that comes at the end. And then we also need the number of spaces to start with. And if you see here, the number of spaces to start with is also height minus 1. So I'm going to just assign the stump value, which is height minus 1, to the spaces. And finally, star. The star is going to start from 1. Am I right? It starts from 1 in here. Okay, so that's it. So now we have all the initial conditions done. Now we can start drawing. So if you see here in the algorithm, we have 5 steps. That's because there are 5 rows needed. Okay, this particular step does not need to come under any loop. So this particular to draw all of these, we need a loop. So 5 steps. So we can create a for loop that runs for 5 times. So for var I is equal to 0, I is less than height. So this runs from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 times. Okay, and then I plus plus. So now in here we have 2 parts. So part 1 is going to be draw the spaces, and then part 2 is going to be draw the stars. Okay, so we're going to draw the spaces every time, and then we're going to draw the star, then the spaces, and then the star, like that. Okay, and then the third part is going to be reset the conditions accordingly. Like if you see here, I told you, right, the spaces decrement. Oh my god, okay, decrement. The spaces decrement by 1 in every row, and then increment by 2 in every row. So every time this for loop runs, that means we are drawing one particular row. So once we draw the spaces and the stars, we need to reset the condition. So that is minus the space value and then plus the star value. Okay, so for drawing the spaces and the stars, we need 2 separate for loops, because the number of times we need to draw the space or the number of times we need to draw a star actually differs. So for the first one, that is the spaces, let's create a variable called j. It's going to run for the value of spaces every time. Okay, so the first time it's going to run 4 times and draw 4 spaces, and then once we decrement it, it's going to run 3 times and then draw 3 spaces, and so on. So that's why we need a for loop here, because for every row we're going to have to draw a certain number of spaces, and loops are the best way to do the same thing over and over again. Okay, so it just has one line of code, pine.innerHTML. I told you we're going to append to this value. So to append, we can say plus equal to. So it's going to take whatever is in the HTML of this pine element so far, and then add what we are adding here with that. Okay, so we are going to add a space. This is a space, one space. Okay, so that's for this particular for element. And then for the next one, similarly, I'm going to create a variable called k, and this is going to run till the star value. To start off, it's going to be 1, and then it's going to be 3, and then it's going to be 5, and so on and so forth. So it's going to run till the star value. Okay, so pine.innerHTML. In this case, it's going to be a star. Okay, sorry, we have to append. If I just give an equal to here, what happens is everything that was drawn so far would be erased, and we're just gonna have this 1 star. So the final output is just going to be 1 star. So that's why we have to include a plus, so that it adds to whatever is in there already. Okay, so that it appends, not replace. And then finally, once you draw this means you're drawing 1 row, right? So for the first time, we're going to have 4 space. It's going to run 4 times, and then because this value of spaces is going to be 4, it's going to run 4 times. It's going to print 4 spaces, and then it's going to come here. It's going to run 1 time and then print 1 star, and then it's going to come out. The row's over. So now we need a break tag to break so that the line comes to the next line, so it can draw the next row. So once the 2 for loops are done, we can draw append our BR tag. Okay, so this is why I included inner HTML and not inner text, because we need to include tags like these. Okay, and that's only possible with the inner HTML property. Okay, so that's for 1 row. So we have all our rows, and now if we don't reset the conditions, if we don't change the conditions, we're going to get the same output over and over. So 4 spaces 1 star, 4 spaces 1 star, 4 spaces 1 star. So for that we need to reduce the spaces value and increase the star value. In here I told you, right, the spaces decrements by 1 in each row, the stars increment by 2 in each row. So spaces minus minus, which is spaces equal to minus spaces minus 1, so it decrements by 1, and the star plus equal to 2. Okay, so that's it for every row. And once this particular for loop runs, once this particular for loop completely runs, we'll have all of our rows of the pine tree, but we won't have our stump. Okay, so once this for loop is done, we need to create another for loop, because we need we need number of spaces, right? We need spaces that say in here finally 4 spaces and then a trump, that is height minus 1 in spaces and then a stump. So we need to create another for loop that can print the height minus 1 in spaces, and we have that value here. We can't use spaces in here because spaces value was changed a lot. At the end it's probably going to be 0. I showed you, right? At the end the spaces value is going to be 0, so that's why I actually had a separate variable created called stump. So I can use it here. So var I is equal to 0, I is less than, I can create the var I value again because it was a local variable here created for this particular for loop, so I can create it again. So less than stump, which is actually height minus 1, and then I plus plus. Now pine dot inner HTML plus equal to, so we are printing the number of spaces that we want, that is the height minus 1 number of spaces. And once that's printed, we can append our stump. Okay, so we don't need a for loop for this because we just have one stump. So we just need a for loop for the spaces because that differs based on the height of your tree. So once you print the stumps with the for loop, you can just print this. Once you print the spaces with this for loop, you can just print the stump just like that without any loops. So that's it. So once we draw everything, we need our reset button, right? So far our reset button has a display of none property, that is it is actually not visible. So we can change the style value and the display value of our reset button to inline, because as I told you before, buttons are actually inline by default. So when I give inline, that means I'm actually giving it the default display value of the button. Okay, so that's it for our submit button. Now we need to create our reset button. So we already got our reset, and all we need to do now is just create an event listener for it, just like we did with our submit button. So, or before that, let us check if we get our output. So first of all, let's add our style, our script, just like we linked our style.css. Let's link our script. So script source is going to be script.js. Okay, that's it. So that's it. So now we've linked, and then save. Okay. So we need to get our pine tree so far. Okay, our reset button won't work, but we need to get our pine tree. So let's see if we get it. 5 draw. Okay, so we get our pine tree and we get our redraw button, but when you click on the redraw button, nothing would happen because we haven't styled our redraw button yet. So let's do that now. So, not styled, we haven't given function for our redraw button yet. So let's call the reset and then add an event listener to it. So another click event listener, and in this case we are going to call a function called reset click. Now let's define this function here. Function reset click. It's not going to have any arguments either. And so once you click on the reset button, I'm going to change the inner HTML value. That is, completely replace the inner HTML value with nothing. Okay. just like we start with nothing here, we are going to replace it with nothing once you click on the reset click button. And then also the reset click button's display is going to become none again, because now our app is ready for another drawing, right? So let's save, refresh, 5, draw. When you click on redraw, everything goes off. You can do that again. Okay, and there are a couple of things you can change here. You could probably, instead of doing this, you could reload the page entirely. So window.location.reload, that's a built-in JavaScript code. It reloads the page. So when you give this, it'll reload the page and it'll also reload this value, everything. So let's give this. Okay, it reloads. So you can do either of these things, either this or this particular value. So that's it for this tutorial. So if you liked it, please click on the like button and please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Right now I'm covering JavaScript, but very soon I'll also be including Python videos, Python related mini apps and theoretical concepts, just like I'll be doing with the JavaScript concepts. And also, if you have any suggestions for future videos or any courses, premium courses, anything, please include them in the comments, and just write comments on anything. I always respond. If you have doubts, if you have questions, whatever, please include them all in the comment sections, and I always respond. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. So I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.